Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Shirley Talk. I'm Mike Mulroney.
I'm Kelly Duckworth.
And today we have the Miss Abby and Miss Samantha from the Brown Cancer Center. How you all doing, ladies?
Great, thanks.
Great. Before we get started, we always... Kelly, you a doctor?
No.
I'm not either. Do you work in the EMS or anything medical at all whatsoever? Insurance, attorney?
Nope.
Accountant?
Nope.
Okay, just we do that because we want to make sure that everybody knows, and we say this is for entertainment purposes only, as entertaining as cancer can be. But if you hear something that we say, please check with your doctor, check with your tax accountant, check with your attorney. Don't take what we say as gospel. Actually, we do have two medical professionals here today, but it falls for them too. If you hear them say something, please check with your medical professional, your doctor, accountant, an attorney. So anyway, well, thanks for coming in today, ladies, and Brown Cancer Center. So you are both dietitians. Is that is that the proper term?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's that mean? You said you are outpatient dietitians. So you're not actually setting the menu in the cafeteria and sending the bland food up to the patients. You are actually working on other things.
Hospital dietitians don't do that either.
Okay. Well, I didn't know. So what is it what's an outpatient dietitian do?
So meaning outpatient means all of our patients are in the building for a short period of time throughout the week.
Okay.
So we don't follow them home. So we try to counsel them on techniques and strategies they can use once they're at home and while they're going through treatment.
You say short period of time. So people that are coming in and getting chemo and radiation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, chemo, people are in the building for 4 hours or so sometimes. And then for radiation, they're in and out of the building within 15, 30 minutes.
Okay.
So we've both worked inpatient and outpatient, and I would say the major difference for us is we get to follow our patients over a long period of time, so months or even years that they're getting treatment, whereas someone's usually only admitted inpatient for a week or a couple of weeks, but we have a very limited time throughout the day to see them, again, while they're there for radiation treatment or getting their chemotherapy. And inpatient, they're there 24/7. So you can catch them at any time of day. You can watch them eat, track what they're eating. And in the outpatient setting, we rely much more on our patients to be truthful with us about what they're doing at home.
Well, I was going to say, when people come in for treatments, a lot of times they're there for a long time. It could be, like you said, 4 or 5 hours. It could be 8 hours. But so do they come in with their lunch or their dinner and sit there and eat while they're getting their treatments? Or is it something that is provided by you all and managed as far as some of the better things to eat while fighting cancer?
They're bringing anything from home. We do have some snacks and things like that available at the center, but for the most part, it's what they're bringing on their own. And a lot of times we're encouraging them, hey, bring your snacks with you, bring your lunch with you, because you're going to be sitting here for at least 4 hours and missing a meal if you don't bring something with you. So
yeah, I don't think anybody, unless they've dealt with cancer, realize the regiment of treatments that these people go through and how long they're sitting in a chair.
It's a big time commitment.
Yeah. So as they're bringing snacks in, are you kind of watching over their shoulder to see what they're eating? Are you going to make suggestions, or how does that work? I mean, do you first of all, when somebody's diagnosed with cancer, they're introduced to about 100 different people. We had Kimberly in here, and she's a sexual therapist, and we had the doctors, and we had nurses, and so when are you all introduced? Kind of at the same time, and go in and kind of talk about what you would consider proper diet during cancer treatments?
Yeah, I would say it really depends. Initially, I used to try and see my patients at their very first visit to the cancer center, and then I quickly realized how overwhelming that was for them, because
it's a lot from what we're hearing.
Yeah, they meet so many people that sometimes I tend to hang back now unless I'm told by the physician or social worker specifically that they have nutrition questions or are already having nutrition related issues like significant weight loss. I'll hang back until the second or third appointment and then kind of make my move so that I can be a little bit more memorable and not overwhelm them with too much information at once.
Yeah, it is. It's overwhelming. One, you're dealing with being sick and the unknown, and then have all these people knock on the door. And you might do this, they almost need a list of everybody's names and what they do so they can remember what they're doing. So you got someone coming in and it looks like they've lost 50 or 60 pounds and they're getting ready to start chemo or radiation. What's that look like? Do you set up a diet plan for them and suggest? It's more of a suggestion. You can't force them to do anything, but Is there some sort of diet plan that you try to get them on to maybe potentially gain a little bit of weight?
Yeah, some of that's dependent on, why have they lost 50 or 60 pounds? Is it because they're having trouble swallowing? Is it because they have nausea? Is it because they just have no appetite?
No appetite.
Or can they not, or do their foods not taste good? So we kind of dive into what the issue is, what's causing that weight loss, and then give them strategies from there. So if it's because they're having trouble swallowing, we're going to talk about soft foods, making sure they're incorporating protein every time they eat. If they're having nausea, we're going to talk about more mild, bland foods and make sure that they're taking medicines on a regular schedule, and, work with the provider and physician too to make sure they're prescribing things that will help the patient eat.
So can you all influence the medicine that the doctor suggests and prescribes, I guess, based on what you've determined is causing them to not be able to take food in?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can suggest different antiemetics to help manage nausea and vomiting. There are some appetite stimulant medications if we find that, the reason a patient has lost a lot of weight is just that they have no appetite and they're not able to overcome that without pharmaceutical intervention. That's an option. There are medications to help with constipation and diarrhea that we also recommend from time to time.
There's so many things to think about. I think the last time you were here, I asked about putting a cheeseburger in the blender.
Yep.
Have you ever done that for anybody?
I mean, I don't, but I know my patients have done it at home.
Have they really?
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that. There's a company that was making drinks, and it was kind of like that stuff for a while, and I don't know how people could digest that. But I guess when you get to a certain point, you'll do anything to keep something down in your system.
That's right.
So how did you all get into this? Is this a degree in college? Or is it just kind of something that you felt like you was called to do to be the dietitians?
Yeah, I think we both kind of have it.
Because it seems like most people start out as nurses and they kind of branch out. Is that not what happened with you all?
No.
No. So dietetics is a degree at some colleges. So I went to the University of Kentucky, and it's a whole program there.
Go Cats.
Yes, go Cats. And I had some interest in dietetics, but was thinking maybe med school. Just knew I wanted to be in the medical field. And then when I was in college, my dad was diagnosed with head and neck cancer. So seeing him go through that and be unable to really swallow anything, nothing tasted good, he lost so much weight, and then just hearing the effect that had on him and witnessing it firsthand made my nutrition classes much more interesting.
It makes you more aware.
Absolutely. And it really, that's what I credit for leading me down this path.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you?
I've always enjoyed science. I actually started out, though, as an interior design major.
That's a big shift.
Wow.
So I really liked the creative side, but then I got into some of those classes and realized I was not as creative as I thought I was. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do something with science.
And that's expensive, too.
Yeah. So in my family, had always been pretty health conscious, and my mom as well has had cancer. And I saw, she was diagnosed when I was in 4th grade. So seeing her go through all that, and she had some metastatic cancer as well later on down the road. And so all part of my growing up, I saw my mom, struggling with treatments, and she had looked into her diet and what can I do in my diet to help myself. So that kind of struck a chord with me, and I became a dietitian because I wanted to help people and educate people and help them live a healthy life. But I especially wanted to go in an oncology setting because of my personal connection with that. So
yeah.
I think it's funny that you mentioned creativity, because dietetics at its core is science, but we don't spend a lot of time talking to patients about the Krebs cycle and metabolic changes and things like that. We are taking a lot of creative approaches of, here's how we can make this food taste better, or here's a crazy recipe for using a supplement that's going to make you drink it more. So we do have to be pretty creative, but the science background is definitely our core.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was horrible at science. My daughter, she said the other day she really enjoys chemistry, and I couldn't figure chemistry out. I was barely able to get out of that class. So, but after you deal with so many patients, can you see a cycle? Like when somebody comes in, you're probably going to know that they're going to like bland food. I don't know. I don't know enough about the food. So when somebody comes in, can you almost guess or know about what type of foods they're probably going to agree with them with the treatments that they're having?
So, disclaimer, everyone reacts to medications and treatment differently. But
you've probably seen enough, though, where a certain person comes in, they're on this medication, and chicken's probably not going to be something they're going to be able to digest.
Right.
I would say you probably kind of have that down pat.
Yeah, that's where I was headed. There are certain nutrition impact symptoms associated with different treatments. So with your radiation, depending on where you're getting treatment, symptoms we expect you to have, and then the different chemotherapy drugs as well, the nutrition impact symptoms associated with those, whether it's decreased appetite, nausea, diarrhea, a certain taste change, like things may taste metallic. Based on the treatment regimen, we can usually predict what they will experience.
I can't even imagine. I mean, you see people going in with these treatments, and I just don't think they realize what they're in for sometimes.
Yeah, and you can tell a patient that till you're blue in the face, and until they really go through it, they don't really grasp it, I don't think, which is understandable. They're going through a lot emotionally and physically and spiritually, and so we just try to educate as much as we can and kind of prepare them for what's ahead, and then continue to help them throughout.
Yeah, I guess most people are pretty responsive to what you all have to say. Sometimes they still want their pizza, and even though it's going to make them sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's really a 50-50 split. Some people are very grateful for the information that we give and make some drastic changes in their diet right off the bat. And others are a little more stubborn, who think that maybe nutrition isn't going to have a big impact, or just are unwilling to give up, like you said, their pizza or their Mountain Dew or whatever it may be that's causing them some problems.
Yeah, the Mountain Dew would hurt me pretty bad. I have one of those every morning, sometimes two. Are there certain foods, we had talked before we started about superfoods and potentially foods that have been on the radar to potentially have caused what they would think has caused cancer in the past? Are there any foods like superfoods that are really good for you before you get diagnosed with cancer? Those superfoods might kind of help you from getting cancer. I mean, are there any type of foods? Obviously, probably dry vegetables and things like that, I've always heard, but anything outside of that?
I would say we always just encourage kind of a general healthful diet, which is not the magic answer anybody wants to hear. But there certainly has been research done on certain foods. For instance, green tea has been associated with a decreased cancer risk.
And that tastes horrible. Sorry, green tea fans. I've tried that. Is there anything to make it taste a little better? Of course, if you throw a bunch of sugar in it, that probably defeats the purpose. Right.
I drink it iced with like a little bit of orange juice mixed in, and that improves the flavor. Yeah. But green tea has been heavily studied. Mushrooms, as long as they're cooked, have some good health benefits.
Not deep fried.
Not deep fried. Nothing deep fried here, unfortunately.
What about what's the Oriental sauce you put in? Soy sauce. That's probably high in sodium, so you can't cook mushrooms in those.
Right. But some soy foods actually are beneficial for health and decrease cancer risk. So it all depends on, a person's sex and age and body composition to start with. So it's not to say if you start drinking green tea, you won't get cancer. Yeah. But, including some of these healthier foods in your diet can certainly have a lot of health benefits, just in general, cancer or otherwise.
What would be it? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we do discuss this with our patient. Well, first of all, if it ever comes up in questions in the beginning of treatment, but then also after treatment, we have our Survivorship clinic, where Abby and I are a big part of that, and we go in and we talk about nutrition with them. And so usually what we review is a plant-based diet. So that doesn't mean you have to be vegan or vegetarian. It just means try to incorporate a big part of your food coming from plants and as minimally processed as possible. So that would mean, maybe not eating meat or an animal protein with every meal, but one of those meals trying to do more of a plant protein. So whether that means adding beans or nuts or seeds as an alternative. Because all these plant foods, especially different colors, different varieties, they all have a different profile of nutrients and phytonutrients, which can help decrease inflammation. And if you're decreasing the inflammation process, then in turn that reduces your risk for any chronic disease, including cancer. So, I mean, there's a big push for that among cardiovascular disease and diabetes as well. So it all kind of encompasses chronic disease.
And sugar is not good at all, right?
Everything in moderation. I think
but doesn't sugar cause inflammation? I mean, certain amounts. I've been told that my arthritis might go away if I stop drinking soft drinks and coffee with a ton of sugar in it. So sugar is can be bad really for you,
Yes.
but in moderation, like you
Right.
said.
Right. We try not to tell people to completely avoid anything. I think when you really get into that and tell them stop drinking soda, no red meat, things like that, it's easy to get depressed, especially when you're already going through cancer treatment or have just finished. So I try and focus a lot more on what you should be eating, because there are so many things. I mean, when you think of all the different fruits and vegetables and their different nutrient profiles, it's almost like, how am I going to fit all this in a day? So if you're focusing on, I need to eat this food for this benefit, this one for this, you're not missing the other things as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always try to tell people that too up front. Like, I'm not here to restrict things from you. I'm here to tell you what can benefit you.
Make a suggestion.
Yeah.
You said survivorship, so you're not only there holding people's hands during their treatments, but you help them afterwards. So if someone is lucky enough to survive cancer, you send them home with some things and suggestions that might help them keep the cancer from coming back, or to make them feel better, or what's the goal? Is there a certain diet that you would send them home that may potentially help the cancer keep the cancer from coming back?
Yeah, so that's where we talk about the plant-based diet and encourage people.
That's the survivorship you're talking about. Yeah.
And like I said, we can always discuss that in the midst of treatment too. It's just, if they're experiencing a lot of treatment-related side effects, it's going to be hard for them to maybe digest beans when they're experiencing a lot of diarrhea from their radiation. So we're not pushing those things as much throughout treatment. But after treatment, once those side effects have resolved, then we're talking more about, okay, let's look at what you're doing now, what we can start incorporating more to get more plant foods in to help give you more antioxidants, more fiber, and decrease that inflammation process to potentially prevent your cancer from coming back. But it's not just about nutrition either. It's a whole lifestyle. You should also avoid smoking. You should incorporate more exercise. The American Cancer Society is now recommending about 300 minutes a week of physical activity.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. So.
And it's more than just diet and lifestyle changes too. I think something a lot of people don't realize is that your symptoms don't just stop once your treatment's over. It can take 6 to 8 weeks to kind of finally start to get back to normal, especially after radiation, or if you've been getting chemo for a very long time. It takes some time to get those drugs out of your body. So Sam especially works with her patients through Survivorship, her head and neck cancer patients who have had this difficulty swallowing or who have a feeding tube. You don't just finish your last day of treatment and get that pulled. It takes some time to wean off of that. So that's something else we focus on in Survivorship.
What about foods? You say plant-based. There's green foods better than red foods. Do you go deep into that kind of thing? Is there certain things into the red foods that may potentially help you or hurt you, or green? From what I've always heard, it's green leafy stuff is where you want to be. Is that right or wrong? Or tomatoes come into play sometimes, or how does that work?
I think the very first page of our Survivorship handout says to eat the rainbow. So green leafy vegetables are wonderful, but as Sam already mentioned, each food group, each color of food has their own micronutrient makeup, different phytochemicals and antioxidants that provide a benefit. So by trying to incorporate something of each color, you're hitting all those groups and getting all of the benefits.
Okay. So
Yeah.
not one is better than the other. It just depends, I guess.
Right, because we need them all.
Yeah.
It's not just about one food or the other. Yep.
Yeah, because you say eat the rainbow. I mean, they've got all kinds of different colors of green peppers.
Doesn't
these
mean
days.
Skittles.
Not Skittles.
Yeah.
Not dipped in ranch.
That's the only way I eat vegetables is ranch.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
It's
probably
okay.
not
At least
good.
you're eating your vegetables.
know.
Right.
That's what I tell my patients. It's just a matter of getting it in.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Is there I don't know. I just keep going back to what about alcohol? Do you all get involved in those situations? I know of a friend whose friend had cancer, and they drank a lot. And when they first went into the hospital, they weren't allowed to have the alcohol, and they kind of went into a shock. Is there a special diet for those people once the alcohol is out of their system so they can continue their treatments, or is that something that you all don't really deal with? I don't know how often that happens, but that person's really kind of went into the shakes, and
Absolutely.
it was bad. It was a bad situation.
Yeah, I mean, I do experience that in my head and neck cancer population, because alcohol and smoking
and
are,
alcohol, yeah.
a big part of that, especially here in Kentucky. So, I mean, I have patients who want to continue drinking throughout treatment. And so I have to have that conversation sometimes of, well, you're losing weight, you're still drinking, it's not giving you any nutritional value. We have to swap that out with something else that has nutritional value, or at least cut back on your drinking. It's also going to dehydrate you. Yeah. So, and that's going to show in your labs, and your chemotherapy. You may not be able to get that treatment because you're dehydrated. So, but then also specifically in head and neck cancer, if they're drinking that, it's going to start burning and irritating their throat and mouth more. So some people kind of selectively, wean off those things anyways, because it becomes more of an irritant to them. But then they also lose weight because if they are, a beer drinker drinking 12 beers a day, then that's a significant amount of calories they're not consuming anymore if they're not replacing it with something else. So
yeah.
I think the American Cancer Society recommends at most 2 drinks per day for men and 1 for women, but decreased alcohol consumption overall. And we do tell our patients that, but we also have to be realistic, because again, we're not here to judge. We're not here to try and limit, everything that they want. So I've had patients tell me before, I'm spiking my Ensure with a little bit of alcohol, and that's how I'm going to drink my Ensure. But I mean, I just say, I can't recommend that, but if you're going to drink your Ensure and get some nutrients in, okay.
Yeah, that 2 drinks a day is tough during lake season. I just
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get it. But you see so many and addiction is horrible. Whether it be drugs or alcohol or Mountain Dew. I've got a Diet Mountain Dew addiction, but to try and get them to wean off of something like that, before years ago, you could walk outside a hospital and smoke, and now you can't do that in any hospital, which is great. But I'm just curious how many chemo patients would go in, get their chemo, and walk outside and smoke a cigarette. I'm sure you probably see that quite a bit now too.
yeah.
Yeah, some people will even leave their chemo and go outside and smoke a cigarette. So it's something we're constantly battling, and the Cancer Center does have a lot of resources for smoking cessation and alcohol addiction, but it's certainly a challenge.
And a patient has to be ready to change, though, too. I mean, it's an extremely stressful time in life to be diagnosed with cancer and go through treatments and talk to all these people and everyone telling you what to do. And so sometimes the last thing they want to do is stop drinking or smoking because they're under stress.
Yeah.
That's how they're coping.
And at a certain age, at what point does it matter? Kind of let them have a little bit of something that they're used to, but it can't help them. I mean, there's no way.
And that's always how I try to present it. We know it's not helping you. So.
Yeah. Do you have any success stories of diet plans that you all put people on that actually changed their life? You see so many people, they beat heart disease or they beat cancer, and they walk out of there ready to change the world. And do most people do that? Do they walk out of there and fall right back to their old eating habits and things like that? Or do you see where people actually pay attention to what you're trying to tell them?
I think it really depends. I think some people take the cancer diagnosis as, a new lease on life and a wake-up call, and they're always very appreciative of what you have to share with them. But some people, it's a stressor. It's a hard time in their life, and so they just try to get through it and then, continue on their way.
I would say my biggest success stories are my pancreatic cancer patients who just get it, because with pancreatic cancer, there's such a specific diet modification you can make. Your body is no longer digesting fats. So when I can tell them, let's limit your fat intake, here's about how much you should be eating at one time, give those dietary restrictions. And if they follow it properly, and if they're taking, the correct medication, the pancreatic enzyme replacement, they feel immediately better. And so I think when you can see those immediate results and feel so much better, most people just take that advice and go with it. So to see
had a positive result from it.
Right. So to see it really click, you know, those patients certainly are successful in doing that. And when I see them in survivorship clinic or even years later, they're keeping up with their medications and limiting their fat intake, and they feel great.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, Kelly's mom died from pancreatic cancer. But to see their quality of life change for a little bit has got to be a true success. So you get people that the treatments aren't working for them. Do you send them home with something that might give them a little bit better quality of life? If you're eating more of this, is it going to give them a little bit better quality versus, you know, being sick all the time and nauseous from whatever meds they're still taking?
Yeah, we certainly try to do that. And sometimes if it's more of an end of life type thing, we're telling people eat whatever you want, because we want you to just enjoy this time with your family. And if that means you're cooking a big fried chicken meal together, then do that. But just know that, especially in a case of pancreatic cancer, that might irritate your stomach.
Fried chicken's bad. All the foods that I like are bad.
My mom was like 100 pounds her whole life, and she never really lost weight. So, like, to me, she never looked sick. But I'll never forget one time she woke up. I don't know what was wrong with her, but she wanted a Big Mac, and she ate the whole thing. And to her, that was a big deal. Yeah. Like, she would barely eat a kid's meal. Yeah. Or she'd put her Ensure in a blender with ice cream.
Yeah.
That was a big one, too.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, they're gross.
Yeah.
But they're good for you, but they're gross.
Yeah.
Well, you mix it in with ice cream.
Exactly.
That's what she had to do.
And Ensure float, I guess. It's
peanut butter helps a lot, too. Ice cream, peanut butter, make anything taste good.
Yep.
Yeah. Regular peanut butter or the raw peanut butter, or does it matter?
Whatever you like.
You ever had the raw peanut butter? Everybody talks about it. I can't eat this stuff, but, you know, I didn't know. Because there's a lot of sugar in peanut butter, I'm sure, isn't there? There's sugar in everything we have.
There's different alternatives, but some are no sugar added or just more natural peanut butter. I mean, there's all kind of different levels of peanut butter.
But I never specify. I just say get some peanut butter, lots of calories, lots of protein, and, you know, it'll stick to you. I have people who carry a jar of peanut butter around in their purse because that's what they can tolerate. And if they can make themselves take a spoonful of peanut butter every hour, they can keep their weight up and keep their energy up and keep getting their treatment.
I keep peanut butter crackers in my car all the time. Kelly's hungry all the time, so I got to give her crackers to keep her happy.
Yeah, right.
She gets hangry.
Me too.
So, you know, in the perfect world, what would you suggest that people maybe start trying to eat? Obviously, more green vegetables, more vegetables. Steak is probably not good for you, only in moderation. How about fish? Is fish okay? Baked fish?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing you shake your head on fried fish, so I guess that's bad. So baked fish, chicken, grilled chicken, I guess. Is that going to be okay with you? And obviously in moderation, but so much of our food have hormones and things in it these days that you just really don't know. Unless you're killing it out in your backyard, it's hard to determine what's been put in it.
Sure.
I mean, it's something really hard to address with people. And all I can really go off of is myself and being realistic. I can't go out in my backyard and kill a chicken. I'm going to Kroger just like everybody else. And if
they used to, my grandma, man, she was awesome, and my mom, they'd cut up the chickens in the sink. Ugh. Yeah, it's a total different world.
That's not on my agenda for this evening. Maybe someday. Yeah. But for now, I mean, I'm going to Kroger just like everybody else. If I've got a little extra cash in my pocket, maybe I'll spring for organic. And there are a few specific foods that, you know, they call them the dirty dozen, that, you know, you do get more benefit if you go organic with those things. But really, in the world we live in, you've just got to be realistic with people and know that not everyone can afford organic. Not everyone can even afford fresh fruits and vegetables or meat. So kind of working with what's available.
Yeah, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. They tell you to eat healthy, but eating healthy is expensive. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can go get 2 cheeseburgers for $3, but a nice healthy salad will be $12. I don't know when we turn the curve on that.
But if I remember, doesn't Brown Cancer Center have like a food pantry or something?
Mm-hmm. We do. That's something we started in the last year. Yeah. We kind of did a deep dive into food insecurity and realized Louisville ranks 5th in the country for food insecurity. 16.
What's that mean? Like people eating bad foods?
No, they don't know where they're going to get their next meal. Or
they don't
have access to
Exactly.
Public health major here. It's a big
There
part.
you go. There you go. But 16% of Louisville residents are food insecure. So like you said, Kelly, they don't know where their next meal is coming from. They can't afford to buy food. They may live in a food desert, which downtown is a perfect example of a food desert with, you know, no grocery stores nearby.
Yeah, they're miles away. They don't have transportation to get there, and
Or they don't have
terrible
running water or the right cooking utensils or an oven to prepare a healthy meal either. So
We live in the richest country in the world, and we have this problem. I say that all the time. I just don't get it. We got the state of Kentucky, or the city one, got millions of dollars from the federal government. Why aren't we using that to help improve people's lives? It'll be interesting to see what they do with that money. Do y'all have any, you know, you bring that up, food insecurity, and a lot of people, a couple years ago, JCPS, one of the largest school systems in the state, started offering breakfast and lunch to kids. And it made me sick to see how many people were complaining about that. But I thought it was a great thing, because a lot of these kids don't know where their next meal is going to be. Did you all have any influence on what maybe the school system fixes? Maybe you should. Maybe we need to introduce you all to those guys and make sure that, you know, these kids are eating something that's fairly decent.
Well, there are food school nutrition dietitians, so they do work with the government agencies, and they are working on a really strict budget though.
Yeah.
So, but they do try to make sure that meals provided to children are balanced.
I feel like they pretty much were, from what I can remember.
We used to eat square pizza
Well,
and
yeah, you
chuck
had
wagons. Anybody have a chuck wagon? Y'all know what that is?
No, I have no idea what that
Nobody
is.
knows.
The guidelines have definitely tightened. I worked with JCPS for a little while, so got to see the inner workings of everything. And like Sam said, they're on a tight budget, and they have a lot of boxes to check for what's allowed, how many servings of vegetables have to be provided every day, how many options for, you know, quote, empty calories they can have. Students under a certain age have to take milk, which contributes to food waste because some students won't eat milk. So there's a lot to be said for that, but I do think it's wonderful that they offer breakfast and lunch, and then they even have a blessings in a backpack program, which is great to see how many people that's reached.
Yeah. So what's a good, is Brown Cancer Center doing things differently than other organizations? I mean, how would you say you all stand out as far as that goes? I see you've got some notes there. I wasn't sure if that was one of those things on there, but does Brown Cancer stand out as far as how you all handle patients and their dietitians and diet and things like that? I'm sure you would say yes.
Well, I mean, I think in part of being an oncology dietitian, we network a lot. You know, she's got connections, excuse me, at UK she did her internship there at the Cancer Center at UK. And we also kind of have a national discussion board as well. So if I have a patient who I'm not very familiar maybe with their diagnosis, or they ask me about a particular tea or food that I'm not familiar with, I go on the discussion board and say, hey, has anybody else heard of this?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's a very collaborative effort among dietitians in general, but especially in the oncology population.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to feel like I'm really well versed in head and neck cancer because that's what I've been doing now for several years. And I've seen hundreds of patients go through treatment from start to finish. And I feel like I know more than the average person at any other cancer, not any other cancer center, but some of the smaller cancer centers like throughout Kentucky. I think U of L really has a leg up on that. And we treat a higher volume of head and neck cancers at U of L too. So, but we also collaborate with local dietitians, like, you know, even oncology dietitians through Baptist and Norton. So we all kind of are cheering for the same team, our patient, and we want to help.
I was going to say, I'm glad it's not as competitive as some other things in the industry. That's good.
No, it's certainly not. And I would say, I mean, in terms of U of L Brown Cancer Center setting itself apart from others, I think just because we're a larger network and we are a teaching hospital and academic facility, we have some resources that some of the smaller, more rural cancer centers and facilities don't have. So that kind of draws people to U of L sometimes to have access to a social worker or a dietitian. You know, some smaller facilities don't have radiation machines. So I think just our size and all the services we can offer sets us apart from other places.
Yeah, there's people that drive like hours sometimes, which I thought was crazy.
Yeah.
When you get in these smaller towns, they don't have the stuff to do.
Right. And I mean, that's, you know, not their fault. That's just what's available in their area. So we do what we can to help. And, you know, whether it's with transportation or lodging.
Right. And the Brown Cancer Center is expanding. I mean, for years and years, we've only had our downtown location, and now we have our medical center northeast. And, you know, there's been talk of further expansion. So I think that'll be really nice to help patients who are a little bit farther away. I mean, I get car sick driving around town. I can't imagine going through cancer treatment and already being nauseous and exhausted and then having to get in the car for hours every day to get treatment. We need to extend our reach to help those patients.
Yeah, I just can't imagine how expensive it is to open a branch in a small town and all the equipment and the chemo and the radiation and stuff that you would have to have. But it's just part of it. You got to reach out to those people.
Yeah.
Because I know we give gift cards to people quite a bit for gas to get back and forth to treatments, and they'll drive 2 or 3 hours. So a day. I don't know how they do it. But, well, last question I have is, all right, you got somebody leaving after their chemo treatments, and they say, look, I just got to have something really good tonight. What can I have really good that is going to not really hurt me, but kind of give me that brain impulse of, hey, this was really good? So do you send them home with a special shake, or do you send them home something with what would you send them home with? Ice cream?
I first asked, what do you like?
Okay.
And what type of cancer do you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, we have to take into consideration every individual. You know, there's not a flat.
I was looking for a sinful diet that you could, a dessert that you could send them home with and say, hey, have this tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if they're having a really bad day, I might say that. Just go home and drink a milkshake.
Yeah. All right, that's fun.
So I know you're head and neck specifically. Are you head and neck too?
No, so I specialize in all GI, so from esophagus all the way down that entire GI system, and then lung cancer and bone marrow transplant.
Wow.
And I also work with the breast cancer patients as well. That's kind of my other part. And then, you know, we have lots of other diagnoses at the Brown, so we kind of take turns taking care, depending on our schedules and stuff, of other diagnoses as well. But those are our big ones. And those, like the GI and lung and head and neck, are the ones that are most commonly malnourished. So that's kind of where our focus is on malnutrition.
Yeah, it's crazy how many patients come in and are already malnourished, and even with us popping in, you know, once a week, still develop malnutrition as they go through treatment.
Just because treatments are tough, and you know, you can again tell somebody something till you're blue in the face, but you know, they may not have maybe the means to take your recommendation, or you know, the will or the support.
I'd like to think most people would eat fairly healthy if they could afford it. And it just goes back down to not having, like you said, the means to be able to do that. When a salad costs more than a fried cheeseburger, it's just, there's a problem there.
Yeah, the means, and I think especially for oncology patients, the support is so important. They're so fatigued and weak from going through these treatments. They feel so sick. They don't want to go to the grocery store and spend time in the kitchen cooking. So if they don't have a caregiver to help, or, you know, support from Meals on Wheels or something like that to provide them with the healthy food, it is so much easier just to go through a drive-through.
Yeah, it really is.
I remember when my mom was sick, and we're obviously trying to, you know, feed her healthy foods. And then you have my dad who doesn't care, and he's eating all the nasty fried stuff. And it's hard when you have two people like that under the same roof. Like, she wouldn't want to eat healthy if he's eating a cheeseburger in front of her, you know?
Right.
So.
And we run into that kind of the opposite way too. I mean, I'm always telling my patients, you need to get more calories in, you know, put cheese on this, use extra oil when you're cooking, maybe slip in some bacon, mix your Ensure with ice cream. And then I have to look at the caregiver and say, you can't do that though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're dieting.
I have a lot of husbands and wives who are like, well, she's losing weight and I'm gaining weight, or, you know, vice versa.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Or their pet, they'll feed their scraps or the food that they don't eat to their pet, and their pet will gain weight while they're going through treatment.
Wow.
Poor pets.
I know. No, the pets love it, I'm sure.
Tell a lot about people sometimes from their pets.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming in today. This is it's amazing what we put in our mouths, the effect that it has, whether we're sick or not. And I guess I got to stop getting those burritos from Taco Bell on a regular basis.
It's hard.
You know, you look at calorie intake and you think, oh, it's lower calorie, it's okay, but that's not always the case. It's loaded with sugar and fat and all this other stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's more about the quality, you know, what ingredients are in it. You know, better quality ingredients, especially more plant ingredients, is going to be more beneficial to you.
Yeah.
Comes out of a frozen bag.
Yeah.
Probably not the best
Not
for you.
all frozen's bad though.
If you look at the back of the food label and you don't know what half the ingredients are and they sound like chemicals or you can't pronounce them, chances are you don't need to be eating it.
And that's just about everything we eat.
I know it.
I have no idea what's in some of these things. Are you seeing more people put gardens in? I mean, are more people, and you may not know this, but I just wonder if more people are growing their own food in their backyard to avoid some of those things, because you could be buying some of the stuff you think's the most healthy in the world, but you don't understand what's on the back of it.
Right. I haven't heard as much about a garden or anything like that, but there's definitely been a push for more organic products, more vegan and vegetarian products. So when we're, you know, writing tube feed orders, there are some patients who want it to be vegan, or there are certain supplements that are plant-based now, or just supplements with less ingredients where you can look at the back and say, hey, I know what all this stuff is. Yeah. I can pronounce all of these ingredients.
So organic is actually good. I mean, I've read different things about certain foods that if it's considered 10% organic, you can put organic on the package. Right. Or I mean, sometimes I feel like we're being misled by the marketers that they're trying to get your attention for their foods. And if they put organic on it, that doesn't mean it's probably pure organic. It's only been dosed one time with chemicals instead of two. Mm-hmm. But I guess you're a little safer by picking the organic option in today's world. Probably, maybe.
There hasn't been any solid research that's come out and said organic is better. I mean, we've studied different foods in comparison to organic to standard methods. I mean, if anything, there is benefit of organic farming on our environment. So that's kind of another perspective as well. It's much better for the environment with the organic farming. But I mean, what I tell people is if you can afford to eat organic, or if there's certain foods that you'd like to choose, like maybe your meats that are organic or less hormones, then by all means do that. We know that's not going to harm you. But at the end of the day, it comes down to we want you to eat adequately, and we want you to incorporate your fruits and vegetables. And even sometimes if that means you're eating a canned vegetable is better than no vegetable at all, because you're still getting nutrients from that.
Right.
Yeah, well, or again, I guess organic is hopefully a little safer, but what does that mean? Does organic mean what? They didn't hit it with pesticides on a regular basis, or is that kind of what it means? There's not a lot of chemicals to kill the insects when the plants are growing? I mean, all that kind of stuff. Is that really what organic means, or what?
Yeah, I mean, it has to do with the soil it's grown in, whether that soil has been fertilized at all. They still use insecticides on some food, but it's a matter of what the insecticide is, if it's more of a chemical versus a natural insecticide.
Right. It just gets really sticky. And I mean, then you get into with your meats, like your free range and your, the antibiotics that they use, growth hormones, whether foods are genetically modified or not. There's just so much out there that even as a dietitian, it's hard for me to keep it all straight.
I bet.
So again, our focus is always on, what can you afford? What do you like? And then let's try and hit, these major food groups, because any vegetable is going to be better than no vegetable.
Yeah. All right. Key today, more vegetables.
Yeah. And fruit. Fruit is good too.
Well, thank y'all so much for coming in today. This has been fun. I think we could have a whole nother discussion on organic and the benefits and how, if it truly is organic or not, because I just don't always trust people putting it in the package. But I'm like you. I'm not going to go kill my own chickens. It's going to be bought at the grocery store. So, but anyway, thanks so much for coming in today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Kelly, how can we help Shirley's Way? What do we do?
We are a nonprofit cancer charity. We help patients that are fighting cancer in the forms of rent, mortgage, utilities, food, prescription medication, all that stuff while they're going through treatment. In 2021, we were pushing really hard for $1,010 monthly donors. I think we're about a quarter of the way there. So I'd like to see at least half before the end of the year. But you can go to our website at shirleysway.org to learn more about us, sign up to be a donor, and check out all of our online raffles.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much. And we'll see you on the next episode.
See ya.
Thanks.
Thank you.